Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a look at one of the cutest, in my opinion, characters in Kaiju number 8. This isn't going to be a very long video, but recently in chapter 69, mild spoilers for that, we get to see a look at one of the second, not even a secondary character, a side character, almost a bit of stage dressing from chapters 2 and 3. No, I don't think she was in chapters 3. But way back at the beginning of Kaiju number 8, of course you had Kafka and Reno in the hospital room, then the little guy, that little Kaiju, crawled down Kafka's throat, and Kafka and Reno burst out of the hospital. That, of course, is when Kafka senses that one of the after beasts, those weird human-headed, human-handed creatures with the disturbingly human teeth, was going to pop up out of the ground and start attacking people. And being our shonen main character protagonist, of course, he had to immediately go running into danger, even though the defense force had already been called out, even though the defense force would be gunning for him and had a description of him. Kafka charges off and ends up rescuing a mother and child from the rubble of a house. And of course it's the child that is the character. The mother is a character also, but she's not given as much character interaction with the main character, so we don't know as much about her. But she is the courageous mother of a remarkably courageous child. Now, of course, it is the prerogative of mothers to protect their children, and in this situation, the mother really couldn't have done much of anything else except tell her child to run. But with the Kaiju closing in, this young girl child, despite being terrified out of her mind, refuses to leave her mother's side, and she's not just clinging to her mother for comfort, she's trying to protect her mother. So this is we immediately get introduced to her as a child of remarkable courage. And this is, I think, looking back, as I've been analyzing this scene more and more, this scene ties much into my theories about what the little guy's motivation is, why this Kaiju might have chosen Kafka, why the little guy is behaving as he does. So I've been thinking about this scene a lot, and I think it really illustrates where the major difference between series like Attack on Titan or even Blue Exorcist and Kaiju number 8 are. Why I personally like Kaiju 8 number 8 so much better than those. In the immortal words of Lucy Maud Montgomery that she places into the mouth of one of the authors in her works, don't worry about being realistic. A pine wood is as realistic as a pigsty and a whole lot more pleasant. Something to that effect. The concept being that for many, many decades, in fact it's like a perennial wave, it becomes the fashion in writing to show the nastier parts of human nature, the nastier parts of reality. And this is what Tolkien deliberately stated that he did not want when he wrote Lord of the Rings. That's why despite there being many families and many children in Lord of the Rings, there are no, for example, sex scenes. And then you have other things like gore and dismemberment. These things happen, but they're not dwelt on. The point is not to disturb the reader. The point is to say, well, these things happen. If you've ever seen them, you know the details. There's no reason to get into all the gory details. This is escapism. This is a tale of heroism. Yes, there can be cowards. Yes, there can be traitors. But ultimately, that's not the thing we're going to fix. I think it's called the proscenium, the point of focus, that what the audience is supposed to be looking at and focusing on. We're not going to focus on those things. And in this scene, you see a mother trying to get her child to safety, and you see the child desperately trying to protect her mother, and then the hero comes in and saves the day. And the monster is terrifying and gruesome, but the monster isn't the point. The monster is just a plot element that is moving the story along so we can see how our hero and this new character interact. And you have this courageous girl. She's drawn to be very generic. She could literally be in almost any manga series. She's a very generic child. And she has a very understandable reaction to our hero. We have already seen the Matsumoto starts us off by making us understand that this is a very courageous girl, but she still suffers from the natural fears and terrors of the situation. And even after she sees Kafka save them as Kaiju number 8, she's still terrified and she cringes back away from him when he tries to smile at her because he is inherently terrifying. And so this is something that I think was a really, really good bit of world building on Matsumoto's part. Even good-hearted, courageous people are going to react negatively to Kafka in his Kaiju number 8 form because there is very good reason. He is, in his Kaiju form, utterly and completely terrifying. And so the girl child flinches back from him, but that, see, on a in a series, in a show, in a manga that was trying to be more grotesque, it would have spent a lot more time focusing on the fact that Kafka was rejected by the very world that he's trying to save. But that is not the scene that Matsumoto leaves us on. So what happens is the child reacts in terror, pulling away from Kaiju number 8, and so Kafka, he does everything he can to make himself non-threatening. He crouches down, he says, okay, I'm leaving. That nice young man over there is going to take you and your mom to the hospital. And she is still afraid of him. She's still terrified of him. But Matsumoto doesn't leave it at that. As Kafka is turning to go, when he shows that he's keeping his word and leaving them, she overcomes her fear and looks after him and thanks Mr. Kaiju for rescuing her. And this is the mental flavor that's left in our brains when we're finished reading that interaction, when we're finished reading that chapter. Yes, she is terrified of Kaiju number 8, and for good reason. At this point in the series, we know nothing about Kaiju number 8. You know, even 69 chapters in, we still don't know that much about Kaiju number 8. We know nothing about its motivations. We can speculate, we can headcanon, but we really don't know anything yet. And so her terror, her fear is perfectly logical, and I think this really does set up why we don't feel bitter and angry at the Defense Force, at the Director General, for taking what, after all, are only logical steps of self-defense. We have established that Kaiju number 8 is terrifying. It is logical for good people, for courageous people, to be terrified of him and to treat him, but to still treat him with that respect. And that one scene really did set the tone for the entire series. And looking back, that's probably when I fell in love with the series. Yes, there are certain elements of life that are terrifying. None of us have ever seen a kaiju, of course, but a lot of us have been close to bulls or cows or just, people who are bigger and scarier than us. You're a small person, you walk into a social situation, and there's a 6'3", 300-pound leather-vested biker in the room. What do you know about him? Nothing. And he is objectively terrifying to a small person. He absolutely could break you in half and you know nothing about him. But as part of a human being in a civilized society, you're still called to show him respect, justice, gratitude. Even if he is kind of a jerk, but because he's a human being, you're still supposed to show him that. That's one of the fundamental elements of civilization, that you are taught from a child to treat everyone with respect, even those who you are afraid of. Because 50% of the world's population is smaller than the other 50%. 50% of the world's population is less aggressive than the other 50%. 50% of the world's population is going to be less intimidating than the other 50%. That's just the way percentages work. And so, as a civilization, you not only have to train the larger, more intimidating, more aggressive people to be gentler, you have to train the smaller, less aggressive, more timid people to still treat those larger people with the respect and justice that you need to give another human being. And a lot of stories kind of toss that out the window. They either if they show someone as inherently terrifying, then that's maybe a bad person. Admiral Akbar was created to show that people that you could have heroes who weren't physically attractive or who were scary. So I was extremely pleased with that initial interaction with the girl. And then afterwards, when we see the girl again at the beginning of chapter 69. She has separated from the terrifying incidences on the night she nearly lost her mother, and not having to look directly at Kafka, she has rationalized him in her brain as one of the costumed heroes who she's probably seen at malls. If you've read any manga, or any range of manga or anime, you will know that in Japan it's a major part of their culture that they have groups of performing, basically acrobats, who go and basically play knockoff Power Rangers at mall stages and stuff. It's just as you'll have certain kind of performing troops in the States, barbershop quartets. In Japan, you have groups of costumed heroes, because they can swap out the costume on anybody with basically the right body shape. And they do performances, and there will be a villain who comes out, and these heroes with ridiculous costume, Power Ranger type costumes and names, will fight the villains. And this girl has somehow rationalized Mr. Kaiju as Mr. Kaiju Man. She thinks of him as one of these costumed heroes who came to fight the villain and rescue her and her mother, which shows a really profound understanding of child logic on Matsumoto's part. This little girl has sat down and logically reasoned out, okay, a kaiju wouldn't have rescued me, a kaiju wouldn't have spoken English to me, so there's got to be a human in there. Oh, so it must be like one of those superheroes I see who wear the costumes at the malls. And so I was just really, really pleased with that interpretation of the character, and I really do hope that we eventually get to see an interaction between Kafka and the little girl at some point in the future, preferably when he's in Kaiju number 8 mode. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Did you get so attached to this little girl from the second chapter? Leave a comment below telling me what you think the purpose of the how much did you think about. How much do you agree with my analysis of that first scene with the little girl? Do you think I'm off base? Do you think there's another way to interpret it? I'd love to hear your comments below. Remember, October 2022, October 2nd, I will be launching my third Indiegogo for my book, Humans Are Weird, title to be announced on October 2nd. Third book in the series of Human Absurdity. And I'm announcing a stretch goal. I will be doing a comic book, if we meet the stretch goal of $5,000, I will be having a comic book style, basically character guide, species guide, something like that published. I've already got the art commission for it. The art commission is getting done, and I'm going to end up doing something with that art, with the art, as an extra as a sort of reward for my loyal backers. But if we do meet that stretch goal, we will be able to print off the comic book style Dungeons and Dragons type guide? I don't know what to call it exactly. Anyway, hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans Are Weird. We took a vote, and Humans Are Weird. I have the data. 2 books in a series of human absurdity. Go check out these short story collections. What will our little green friends think of us when we finally do make it to space? Find out the answer in 2 books of human absurdity. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, and Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play.